Welcome to Cinematalkraphy. We watch movies with you so you don't have to.
Welcome to Cinematography. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas, joined by...
Brandt Hughes.
How's it going, good sir?
It's going splendidly.
Is this going to be your...
How about for you?
I think it is going jolly good.
Right.
That is like my only thing with that. And what's funny is everything we're talking in the voice has nothing to do with the movie we're doing today.
No, very off brand from the movie. Off theme.
We are doing Looper. Directed by, I forget the guy's name, and I feel terrible.
Rian Johnson.
That's right, Rian Johnson. It is an hour and 58 minutes. It stars one of our all-time favorite actors.
J.G.L.
Yep.
J.G.L.
If you know Brandt, you know how much he loves Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
A
lot. And it stars one of not my favorite actors, the other guy, Bruce Willis. But
he's a guy.
He is a guy. He's a big guy. So you know what? We've already said the time. We've already said all that stuff. Let's just go into this. Count us off, sir. And there we go.
Welcome to Cinematography. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas.
I like how you say my name, like just because of how I do it. Like you have to, like it's almost like that is the way you kick it in. Is just like
well, those are the words.
Those are the words. Those are definitely what the words are.
Yep.
And this
that joke gets funnier every time too.
So yeah. When I had first gone into Looper, I really had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
Because like from the trailer, I really couldn't tell if it was in the future or not. Like had you told me this is in the future, I would have said, "Really? That's interesting. I did not know that." Because before I saw the movie, because when I saw the film, it clicked in that I'm in the future now because of certain devices that came up, but. Like from this point on, we're like I would never have thought anything,
Yeah, I think that really is a testament to how realistic of a depiction of the future this film is.
What is your favorite depiction of the future in a film? Let's start with the unrealistic. What is your favorite unrealistic depiction of the future?
Man, I don't know. Like, I mean, you got your Back to the Futures.
That's a good one. That's definitely
which are kind of zany.
Right, I'm definitely that one.
But not wholly unrealistic.
I think my favorites have been the 80s depictions. I mean, because they just don't, I mean, they couldn't have guessed.
Yeah, and they all seem to be like a fun depiction, And
I love the idea of this, of like time travel hasn't been invented yet, but it will be. And because it was invented, people went back in time. To exploit it and things like that.
Yeah.
And two, I love the fact that they get paid in like this like hypercurrency and things like that.
Yeah, it's cool. Did you ever hear the story about this little monologue part here?
No, what's the story behind it?
So this was the original thing. Like originally it was just kind of a short story that was like 2 pages long or something.
Okay.
And it was basically just this monologue.
Right.
And then Rian Johnson kind of played around with it and it just stayed in his head for years. And then he started developing it more and more, and it eventually became a film.
So is this the I guess the initial pitch maybe of it? Because this is a perfect pitch for a film. If you put it out there, it's a great concept. What's also great about this film is that like wasn't this like dirt? I mean, in terms of Hollywood terms, like dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Like
for sure,
and it's cool because it's that's why I loved about this film was that looking at the budget for it, it was just completely and utterly cheap as all balls, and such, and definitely interesting. Two, I always liked how like all these scenes just never, unless you knew that you're in the future, like watching from the trailer, it would never have seemed that way.
Right. So, how excited are you that Rian Johnson is doing Star Wars?
I'm pretty excited about that more than I'm excited for what's his face?
JJ?
I am way more excited that he's doing a film in Star Wars universe more than I am with J.J. Abrams. I have nothing against J.J. Abrams. He's a great visual director. I enjoyed the hell out of the first Star Trek film. Not so much Into Darkness, and I have my reasons for that. But Rian Johnson, definitely, I would love to see do some more bigger budget stuff, if nothing more, to see what he can do with a bigger budget.
Yeah. I mean, he's got such a cool style, and he's got a really interesting I don't know, there's just something so cool about all of the stuff that Rian Johnson does. When you look at like Brick, like there's so many interesting choices in like the dialogue and really like the types of stories that he tells.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's so interesting seeing what he will inject into this Goliath of a franchise.
What I really hope he does, and it's the one thing that I enjoyed about Looper, was that, yes, we're in the future. Yes, there's visual things that kick it off. A lot of this sort of post-apocalyptic stuff like you're seeing right now, and all this kind of weird economic things. Boom! Stay off my land. But what I dug about, what I would love to see, what I love about this movie is that it really concentrates more on story, on characters, on how they interact with each other and things like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, that's where it really shines, and I hope that come Star Wars, whenever he takes it, whatever direction he takes it, by the way, and whatever films he ends up doing, I hope that becomes the concentration, you know?
Sure. I trust he will take a very interesting and great approach to it.
But yeah, I did dig the whole.
You know, they did most of those effects practical.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what? Like with like?
It's just on string.
That's amazing.
And then the string is painted out.
Like I said, they've done such a great. They did such a great thing with stuff like that. Like I would never have known until like right about now that, you know, all stuff, all these silly things. What's great about the stuff is that there's just so like, are you like it's so like, it's such a stylized world that I dig it a lot, enough to want to keep being here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to think of my like all-time favorite depiction of the future. I think it might be actually, take it back. My all-time favorite unrealistic depiction of the future was this cartoon called Thundar the Barbarian. Apparently in like the year 1992 or 1995, I can't remember. Like apparently the world gets plunged into like this like completely death world, and dinosaurs and weird beasts live. It's like a cartoon from the 70s, so the 90s were the future to them. But it's so like completely out of left field. It's not like the future's happy. It's like, no, not only is the future dead, but we've gone back to like barbarian times.
Yeah, that sounds pretty absurd.
It's one of my favorite all-time ones because it's like in the year 1995, and it's like when I was watching it, it was like 92 or something like that. I'm like, it was so like ridiculous at the point of time when I watched it as a kid that we're already beyond that.
Yeah.
It's just this is such a weird concept. The idea of loop, or the idea of like closing a loop and such. Like, here's a question. Would you ever consider to even be part of this kind of thing?
No, me personally, no way.
Neither would I.
Are you kidding me?
Well, neither would I, because like the idea of like killing my future self, it just doesn't seem happy, you know? Because that, you know, I guess like the knowledge of it at least means that, you know, you got that far. Mm-hmm. So that means, you know, that
that comes with a certain predictability, which is nice.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be super surprised by something.
You know? But it just seems so bizarre that, like the idea knowing that I'm going to be, you know, not only dead in the future. I mean, obviously we're going to die in the future and things like that. But the idea that that I'm going to essentially kill myself and that I'm never gonna go. I mean, obviously the idea that no matter what, I'm at least going to live up to that point theoretically.
Sure.
But it just seems like such a concept that I could not get behind.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just time delayed suicide.
Yeah, and it always freaked me out that these guys were so like okay with it. And I guess in their world, in this sort of poor area, I guess that seems like, well, who cares? I'm not going to live to be 40 anyways, or 50 or whatever age they live to. I might as well live it, happy.
Yeah.
But it always seemed like a lot of these characters could have been more. And obviously JGL's character, I forgot his name off the top of my head. It's such a hard. I've seen it a while, but he does show that he's more, obviously, as we kind of go down the list.
Yeah. Also, there were some pretty cool shots back in that.
Oh, there's so many great. That's
like
the problem with this film.
The upside down shot. Like,
oh,
that
yeah,
was really cool.
There's again, all these shots are just are great effects because like it's such a like I love these sort of transitions with her main character because it goes, like what I like about it is that this is the mundane. So he goes from like shooting somebody, going to do his life, like that becomes such the mundane thing.
Yeah.
And the idea of like, because do you think that? I mean, because he's like trying to save, like it's because he's got such these weird things. Like it's such a weird, hard idea that he's closing. He knows he's gonna end up killing himself. And yet he's like saving all this money.
Yeah.
Like he's got.
I mean, you got 30 years to spend that money. That's
true, but. I mean, if I were, I guess this idea of going like, well, can you really forward think,
Yeah. Well, his plan starting off is just, all right, so I'm in this place where I'm not really feeling it. I'm going to do this job. Yeah, it's going to have a terrible end, but I can make enough money that I can go move to China and live how I want to live for at least the next 30 years. Right. So instead of like he's just backloading his life, instead of living a full life in a place he doesn't really care about, he's ensuring that he can go live a better life for however much time he has.
Yeah.
Which isn't totally unreasonable, but
like I said, and of course we now see what happens to a character that chooses not to close their loop.
What's that guy's name? Paul something?
Not Paul Rudd. I'd have to look.
No.
We'll definitely have to.
I really like him.
No, I like everyone in this movie.
He was in Little Miss Sunshine. He was in.
Oh shit! Oh, that was the brother, the older brother, the one that says the infamous. These guys are all fucked.
Yeah.
But
he was in Ruby Sparks.
Yeah.
He was in Let There Be Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. I really like him in everything.
Like I said, I could never do this. I look at this guy, and I feel his pain because I could never ever. Joe, that's Joseph Gordon-Levitt. No, Joe. What do you know?
Yeah. Real hard to remember.
Remember that. But I could never do this. I kept thinking about this the whole movie as a person because I wonder the hard part about this film is that they take a whole bunch of these gangsters, these mobsters go back in time, take advantage of a lot, a situation of just these kids that are completely, at the end, in terms of like poverty, in terms of stuff like that. And so it's just so scary because I could not imagine the idea of knowing not only did I just kill myself and get paid for it, but that means I know that I have that. I mean, there's comfort in knowing when you're going to die, I guess, but the idea of like, I'm going to kill like that idea, just like this is my limited time window, I guess.
Yeah.
I could not think that far. I could not think all that stuff, but
yeah. And with that comfort, there's also the opposite of this like you have to head on confront the inevitability of death.
Yeah.
Which like everything in our wiring, in our brain, tries to get us to forget that death is inevitable.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very hard to come to terms with.
Yeah.
But they do somehow. Then again, they are criminals. They're hardened criminals.
Well, that's the thing, and that thing is that you know, these kids are all grew up poor. They all grew up impoverished. Here comes these guys offering a you know, fancy cars and this lavish lifestyle, simply by the fact that, you know, they're just, they have the advantage of when they're, you know, from the future, because they know how, for example, to do things like betting, how how everything plays out.
Right.
And it's scary. It's super scary. And I would never, you know, it's one of the things I loved about this world was that it really puts everything there, you know?
Yeah.
Two, I really dig a lot of the weaponry in this movie.
Yeah, there's a cool style to it with all the blunderbusses.
Yeah, that's what I'm like saying.
Really
like the
big
idea
handgun,
of it, right? Like these sort of like these really stylized guns. I mean, the blunderbuss is definitely more of a, you know, references kind of an older. I think that's what I like about it is a lot of these weapons feel real. Like, you imagine the future that we'd have laser pistols and things like that, but we have, you know, the blunderbuss is a very old weapon. I mean, it is a weapon of sort of, if you will, pirate times.
Yeah.
And I like that. That is the weapon of choice for these guys because the idea behind it, you know, that they're just these are you know, brute force things, but you have to be up close and personal with these sort of weapons. It's interesting how they have that, and then they have, of course, this this, like, you know, giant fucking pistol.
Yeah, that was like the really smart thing that Rian Johnson did, which goes back to us talking about the realistic nature of the universe. Like, everybody knows that history repeats itself and things come in cycles, and trends especially come in cycles. And so he was like, well, if we wanted to pick the future, why don't we like show a bunch of stuff from the past?
I've thought about that too. Like I've Okay, I forgot this actor's name. It's what's his?
I don't remember.
I have to look up his name because I love that he was the main villain.
Yeah. But yeah, so that influences not just the weaponry or anything, but, you know, the way that Joseph Gordon-Levitt dresses, all of the cars and all that stuff.
There's a lot of character in this world, and I dig it. In fact, it's funny that you say the whole trends in the future because I've been mulling over this idea of kind of a future world that I'm starting to kind of write. And it's funny that I'm taking inspiration from a lot of the past, certain parts of the past as well, to kind of do the stylistically things and stuff like that. It's funny because, you know, when we think of future movies, and I realize this is not specifically a future movie. It has to be in the future because of the idea of time travel and things like that. But when we talk about like time travel movies or movies set in the future, you know, movies like Blade Runner come to mind, or space kind of movies and things like that. Whereas, you know, this kind of cityscape, and or, you know, even to its I think positive is that it feels like it really exists. And two, it really keeps the budget low, and you're able to do a lot of these sort of out there ideas in Hollywood in a time, you know, no offense to Hollywood right now, but where if this had a bigger budget, it may have not done as you know.
Sure.
It's a hard sell, you know. It's a cool movie, and I think it did pretty well on that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I mean, it did well enough that people were looking at him for Star Wars.
Well, because again, what the beauty part about this is that, you know, with Rian Johnson that you learn about the movie is that you can, you know, I think it's a good view of what can a director do with little resources. Because I think that's where you get a director that has to boil things down to its basic raw elements. You know, when you have a limited budget or limited time or some type of or limited sort of shots and things like that, you go, how do I make something that's going to catch the interest, and how can I do that? What I like about what he did this film is that with the limited amount of money he had, and we'll have to look at the budget sometime, but I know it was it couldn't be more than $20 million. It might be more than that, but
It was somewhere in that range. It was definitely less
it was
than 100.
definitely a lot less than like 100. It was definitely like in a range of like, when I saw the number, I was like, really? That's how much it cost? And I was amazed at that fact. But what's good about that is that you have a director that knows how to sort of eke out the most of a budget. And though, granted, Star Wars, he's going to have, you know, a lot of funds, it's good to know that he can do something in $100 million.
Sure, yeah.
But more importantly, too, that he's able to tell a compelling story. You know, a story that hooks you. And that even if you're not of the mindset of like, well, this is a time travel movie, that you're going to watch it because everything is so... you know, not only looks great, you know, framing wise and stuff like that, but the story is just so out there and bizarre. And, you know, the ending is such a weird ending that it's just like, wow, this is amazing. You were able to pull off, for lack of better words, an indie science fiction film.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
And such. And
Rian's been really good about operating under those parameters before. Like, Brick was an insanely small budget. Like, that was mostly just calling in favors and stuff. And I can't imagine the Brothers Bloom cost much to make either.
No, not at all. Even that had some style to it as well.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's probably, I mean, again, if it's something that can work with style, I think that's a lot better than somebody that just can work with a budget. Because, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the director. I'm probably just like one of his films, Michael Bay. You know, the man has, typically for his films, has, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's not much story in the Transformers franchise.
Sure.
Whereas, you know, take a movie like Pain and Gain for him, and it's a very lower budget, I think that movie has, like, far more compelling story than anything he's ever made.
Yeah, I've still never seen it.
But that being said, that's sort of why I love Looper as much as I do, is because it's this very much let's make this very awesome story that just happens to exist in the future because it has to. Mm-hmm. You know,
and there's a really interesting thing about Rian Johnson's style. Like some directors, they have such a potent style that you can walk into the middle of a movie and say, oh, this is directed by Wes Anderson.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, this is directed by this guy. This is directed by this guy.
Yeah, I agree.
But Rian Johnson, I feel like there's less of that, and you're just like, oh, this is a compelling movie. I don't know who it's directed by. But when you see that, oh, this is directed by Rian Johnson, you can kind of piece together, oh, yeah, because I can see the similarities between these two films, but it's not such a, like, in-your-face kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's just really interesting underlying mechanics that he really takes hold of.
That, and I love this idea right here.
Oh, this is such a cool scene.
Yeah, it just seems like such a weird, like, what does it say? Oh. And it's so weird of, like, it exists here and such, because, like,
Oh, and where's it at? There's a really cool effect in this scene that I forget. I think, like, one of his fingers vanishes, like... Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
And eventually all of them vanish, and it's like he's...
And his nose!
You know,
and his other finger.
Yeah, it's so freaky.
Yeah.
Because, like, eventually all of his limbs start to come off, and he starts getting, you know, like his foot gets all broken off, because it becomes apparent what's happening, and kind of, you know, because up at this point you never could quite figure out, you know, the time you know, elements and stuff like that, and everything else in there, and I like that it does all this stuff, because it's such a very strong way of explaining, here is what's happening in time. You know, it's a great way of saying what's happening to that character, but it's so heartbreaking, because, you know, that this guy is going to be pretty much shot here, and if he had just closed the loop, he would have been fine.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying consequences.
Yeah, and again,
really set the stakes.
The idea of like that this is what they did to him, and now it doesn't matter. I'm just surprised they just didn't kill him, the younger version of himself. But I guess that's the point, is that it'll makes it easier.
Yeah. Well, I think. Well, I was gonna say it might have been the case where they start scarring him, and if he gets there soon enough, they might have dealt with him in a way that wouldn't permanently kill him.
Yeah.
And they would have just killed the future self and then set his old self free, but like mutilated or something. But
yeah,
I think at the end of the day, they probably would have killed him anyway. So
yeah, I would have killed him. I mean, like that just seems. I mean, that seems such a cruel fate. I mean, it doesn't matter at that point, but it's just such. It was a great effect though. It was
totally.
a greatly terrifying effect, because when the wording is just like be here in 15 minutes, like, oh crap.
And it's such a smart way of conveying like some of the rules and mechanics of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Because the hard part when it comes to time travel in any film is sort of how you interpret time travel, like what you do in that world, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are your time travel rules, and even if you're not going to describe them, and there's a great scene, we'll come to it, I'll point it out.
Yeah.
You still have to have some established rules in time travel.
Sure.
You know,
even if it's just enough to make you suspend your disbelief.
Yeah. Because it's such a, I mean, you know, we take, for example, Back to the Future had sort of the idea of time of certain events being key in your life, or others' lives that'll affect yours. Looper kind of has the once we get Bruce Willis in the mix, it has more of the I guess it'd be like the Einstein principle of like that time sort of goes in waves, and things sort of as things change, they sort of ripple through the universe. Mm-hmm. I think it's part of quantum. I might be totally wrong, but I know that's sort of a quantum idea.
Sure.
The idea of timing. Anyways, but I always liked how Looper did it, because it was what was cool about it is it kept the stakes high, and it still at the same time made sure. God, that's so haunting. To know, like what's haunting about that is that, oh man, what did he? Like I said, this character, I kind of wish things had been better for him, because like when it becomes apparent that he's about to, close the loop. Like, he almost does it, too. Like, he doesn't.
For sure.
He wasn't going to hesitate, but he himself was smart enough to set it up. That's the freaky part. This is where he closed the loop, right? Or he's supposedly supposed to.
Yeah, this is where he's supposed to.
And it's just so freaky that he knows. All right. Here's a question, Brandt.
Okay.
Let's say your older self comes back in time.
All right. Cool guy.
You get to ask him one question that he will answer. After he answers the question, he will disappear. You won't die. Like, you won't be killed, or he won't be like you're closing the loop or some shit like that. Mm-hmm. But he'll answer one question. What do you ask him about the future? Now, this older self of yours is Bruce Willis's age, so it's definitely.
I thought you were gonna say your older self is Bruce Willis. Like, that's a weird series of events that happen.
If my older self was Bruce Willis, I'm just gonna end it now. I've heard some stories about the man. I would end it now.
Yeah.
And such. Like I love it. He thinks to like he would have closed the loop. Like, he knows it was him, and he just, because he hesitated for that. Like, it's such a interesting thing.
Yeah, and it's so cool the way they do, like, the story kind of loops back on itself. In just like 5 minutes or something, and they kind of tell it from Joseph Gordon-Levitt's perspective, and then from Bruce Willis's perspective.
Yeah.
Or I guess the opposite way.
Right, because we see where his life would have led.
Yeah.
Which, again, I find it so weird. And, again, because the idea... This is what I loved. I loved that
phone.
That phone. I loved that. That was probably my favorite device in the entire movie.
It's cool.
All right. So, yes. Yourself is... like, if you're 20,
right.
This is your 50-year-old self.
All right.
What do you ask him? What's
Bruce Willis pops up. Does he know what's going on?
Yes. He knows that he
understands the situation.
Well, he understands he's come back in time. He's understanding he's talking with himself. Like, he's basically been a bit addressed, said that at that point in time, your older self has been briefed to know he's going back to a key moment in time, the set moment in time, if you will. And he knows that he's talking to his younger self, and that he's going to answer one question. He already knows what question is going to be asked because that's time, but you don't. You know, you live in the present. He lives in the future, kind of thing. But he's aware of what question you ask, so nothing gets screwed up in the timeline. You know, everything's already been predetermined from his point of view, so nothing gets screwed.
Yeah. I mean, the question is super simple.
Okay.
I thought of this. It was honestly like the first question that I thought of because I thought of this like
when I watched
a few minutes ago.
Okay.
It's just, what should I know?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And so, like, he's going to know what's going to be really important for me throughout the years. He's going to know what to tell me.
That's an interesting approach. I would never have thought to ask that question.
Yeah? What would you ask? Me,
personally, I would probably ask...
He would have been like, does Earthbound hold up?
That's... I don't need to ask.
You're
that
like,
question.
I already know.
Like, I already know that answer. If it's holding up this many years, I think it's going to hold up another couple of years. I will probably ask honestly. I love this scene right here. I love that the shots from that. It's one of the greatest things in the film. It's just that.
And this shot is so awesome, where he jumps out. Oh, it's so cool.
Oh wow.
Hold on. Oh, it's when he falls.
Is it when he falls?
Yeah. Right there.
Oh, that's a cool shot.
Oh, yeah. They did that practically.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, this is probably why they got to save a lot of money, is that there's a lot of practical effects.
There is a lot of practical stuff. Yeah, so your question.
My question would be... what... Out of all the things that, because you see the point, you say that what I would know, and I maybe it's a similar kind of question because I would say, what does the future hold? But I know myself enough that I would ask that question and I would not get a response, or I'd get a very vague response because I myself knows enough about me, obviously, that I wouldn't want to know the future and such. This is from Bruce Willis's point of view, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is not the dream. Because I know there's a God.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's bizarre about this, and this is where I think the time travel kind of breaks down a bit, is right here, and the idea that he's able to still kind of skew his future a bit.
Okay.
Like, this is where I think, and I don't mean it like terribly breaks down, because it doesn't terribly break down. I think it minorly breaks down, but it does kind of introduce a couple interesting facts for sure.
Okay.
Because there's a point right now where, like, this is what I love about it. What I love about this movie right now is that
they have really bold typography, which is really nice. Because that's mine.
What I love about this is that, like, look, this kid's like already going to lose all his cash. And he's not even thinking about, like, he's already going back to a life of crime. Like, he's not even thinking about what his future's going to hold. But once he meets, like, the girl of his dream, so to speak, do you know what's funny about that shot right there, that character?
What?
You've seen what's it called? Fifth Element, right?
Yeah.
That way he had the hair looked exactly like the main villain from Fifth
You're right.
Element.
It totally does. Just like that. Gary Oldman's character.
Yeah, like I just noticed that it looked exactly like Gary Oldman's character,
That's
and
funny.
it's such a. I've seen that. I was like, that looks like Gary Oldman's character from Fifth Element. It's so weird. And then of course this. What I love about this is that Bruce Willis, as he gets older, realizes that he could live longer and he could have had fun and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He has a life, a wife, and that kind of thing. And what's strange, again, and this is where I see it slightly break down, but and only because of the way time travel works, is that supposedly he had a vision of sort of what the future was supposed to hold. Him getting shot that way, but I guess it just didn't happen that way, and such. And I always wondered why that became sort of how that worked out in its logic. And again, it's just it's when there's a moment in the movie, we're going to come to it pretty soon, where they talk about time travel and thinking it out.
Well, obviously the answer is parallel universes.
It could be. No, I mean it's fair because again, there's a point where Bruce Willis starts coming to what his future is going to hold, and he starts thinking in terms of think about he has to concentrate on the one memory because the memories start changing because of such. And it's those weird, not those inconsistencies. These are just sort of like, well, this is what the mechanics of time travel that we haven't quite established, except for we're gonna send him back 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I could never. Like he has to think this and sort of almost live the same way, but it's funny about that sort of thing is that even this is going to change the timeline a bit, because who knows if he would have been the man that he is if he wasn't that.
Right.
So let's see. God, I'm getting absorbed in this film now.
You're a sponge.
I am a sponge. Well, because
this film is stuff that sponges absorb.
They tend to absorb water.
Think about it.
Okay.
Think about it.
Sponges and stuff absorbs.
Yep.
I will say this, as time machines go, this is a very, very cheaply made one.
Yeah.
But again, a time machine could be anything.
This was a practical effect?
I bet, of course.
It was just the lens whacking technique kind of thing, where you take the lens off of the body and kind of...
And even their digital effects like that, that's like an effect we could do, I say we in terms of like our budgets.
It's really like the just popping in kind of effect actually ends up being super, super cool.
Yeah, no, it works out. And like I said, this is such a weird... Again, when that shot was shot that way, like I said, that wasn't how he remembered it, and that's where I think this whole idea of time breaks down, because it's not discussed what's happening.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably a slightly more accurate depiction of time travel than most films.
Yeah,
but I think we'll get into that more once they are discussing the mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, again, time travel is, whenever you start thinking about it in movies, there's so many ways of doing it. Like, here he remembers that memory now about that, and it's such a weird thing that he's remembering all this stuff now, and everything. But again, I like the idea of like, here is the older version of me that's had life experiences and sort of understands how the world is, because like, again, when we're younger, and I know you're younger than me and that kind of stuff, but in terms of your maturity level, you're pretty much way mature than I was at your age.
Yeah.
As a younger self, sometimes we don't have the perspective of we're gonna live beyond these years, and things are gonna be different, and stuff's gonna change, and it's, you know, with these characters in our main film, Joe just doesn't think, not even long term, he doesn't think that he'll ever get married. I mean, he's thinking about this prostitute girl that he's gonna give money to, whatever, so he can raise his kid right and stuff like that, and all these kind of things. And what's even stranger, you know, thinking about what's going to happen soon in this movie and where it all ends up, even the fact that him coming back and doing this is what kicks off things, you know?
Yeah, sorry, I'm totally absorbed. That was practical as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of... Did you ever hear the commentary? For
No, I did
Rian
not.
Johnson's? It's super revealing and so great.
I'm going to check it out when we're done.
Our commentary, sure. All right, hold your applause. But Rian Johnson's commentary, really good. Both of them, the in-theater commentary and the DVD commentary.
Too, what's funny about that scene, but what I dig about a lot of this stuff is that, you know, our main character, Joe, just doesn't quite understand things. And two, I don't understand. I never quite understood why it was so bad that they had to close the loop. Like, I never understood why that was so important.
I'm sure if I sat down and thought about it, I would.
Because that was one thing. I always try to think about why that was so important that they had to close, that they had to kill themselves. I mean, obviously it's the claws and stuff, and I guess it's because he's coming back to take vengeance on everybody.
They do talk about why it's important to do it. The vengeance thing is just that's why there are so many people being closed in such a tight time frame. But the reason they close the loops is because they say, "Hey, we want you to do illegal stuff. It's going to be super lucrative for you. But once we're done with you, you're done."
Yeah, the idea that they can't hold them against them, that kind of thing.
It's so illegal that they can't have somebody out there who can track them back.
That's true, because I mean they are doing illegal time travel and stuff like that, and completely fucking with the time stream.
So the only way to safely get somebody out of the illegal activities is to kill them, and the only way to safely kill them is to send them back in time and kill them.
That's very true.
Science.
This was done digitally. This is a digital effect. Sorry.
Good eye, Roberto. Good eye. Yeah, you know, most people would not realize that map wasn't actually there.
I know. That was a completely digital effect.
He was holding a green screen.
Yep. I love what he's saying. I love that he does this too. But here's our diner scene.
Yeah.
Where they do explain.
There's that hover bike.
Yeah, because he stole it. Where they explain the time travel. So you can all learn, and that's the scene we've been referencing. It's also good to know that Pepsi will go into the future.
Sure. I mean, it is basically the Illuminati, so...
It's good to know Budweiser will survive, neon signs will survive, and Pepsi.
Hate to break it to you, Roberto, but a lot of things are going to survive into the future.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we Demolition Man future could still exist. It could just be all Taco Bell. That is probably the most ridiculous thing of the future, the idea that Taco Bell will be the only restaurant that survives.
You know, I've never seen it, but I have heard tales of this Taco Bell future from Demolition Man from multiple sources. Like, just in the past month, a lot of people have been talking about Taco Bell Demolition Man futures.
Well, because it's one of the
which sounds awesome and terrible.
There are so many things out of like I should definitely give you a copy of Demolition Man, if for nothing more to see this. I think it's a terrible film. It has like certain things advantage to it, but it's definitely not the best film on the planet. Hey, look, soy steak. Did you catch that?
No.
Oh wait, hopefully we'll get another side shot so we can see the specials. because we're doing the two flip shot right now. There it is, soy steak.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I caught that. I think is that a Rockstar symbol? I'm noticing now a lot of this as I look at the background, like all these like weird product placement stuff. But I mean, it's a diner, so that's fair.
Gotta keep it real, man.
I love the idea. I think it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Oh. Again, I love this the idea of like I gotta kill myself, because
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somehow young Joe still thinks he can get out of this.
That's what it is, and I it's such a weird thing, the idea of like you're fighting yourself. Like there's no way out of this in any way now.
Mm-hmm.
You're screwed no matter what. Even if you kill him, you're screwed.
Yeah.
I
mean, they're still coming after you no matter what.
Yeah, and there's so many other things, and I will say, I once we get the ending for sure, I like the way it works, but I love that here it is, like right here, that whole making diagrams of straws. It doesn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
And I love he doesn't go into too much detail either, and I think it's a little purposeful from older Joe's point of view, because the problem is right now is that his memory can change. That's what it is. That's what okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what okay. So yeah, they go clearer, cloudier as they become more or less likely. That's what it was. Okay. I remember it was something like that because technically, as he's coming back in time right now, he's theoretically changing the future.
Sure.
I guess the part that that didn't really make sense a lot is that the future he's changing right now, the past he's changing right now, is the future that puts him here at this point in time. If that makes any sense?
Sort of. I mean, that future's gone permanently.
Right.
Now that he's gone back in time.
Right. But even then, like the future that's gone by that point in time, because obviously the mother he kills is the mother of the criminal that ends up, closing a lot more loops earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense? And I guess again, this is where we get messy. But what I do enjoy about this film, that even with that thought in my head, and I'm only thinking about it now as I'm like pulled away from the moment, as I'm pulled away from the film, as
sure,
already watched this film, knowing what's going to happen and things like that. Because in the moment, I never thought about this, because it's such a compelling film. I do like the upcoming action sequence right here.
Yeah. When they get intercepted by those guys.
And again,
But yeah, I love the idea of not really like past and present are all kind of intangible concepts. All that exists is now.
Yeah.
And all that really can exist is now. So when he's kind of bouncing back and forth between potential eventualities, it's like I think it's cool that it affects old Joe.
See, look, he's taking sponges absorb love.
Okay. So you are a sponge, and this film is love. That checks out.
There you go.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just saw that. I just need to continue with your story, sir.
Yeah. No, I just think it's it's an interesting mechanic that since there's old and new Joe, and they are somehow intrinsically linked.
Yeah.
That these changes in reality can affect young Joe in the same way that anything affects anybody, but this anomaly, old Joe, who's come back from the past, he's getting these weird things. Isn't the main isn't the main dude who we couldn't remember the name of earlier, basically young Joe's boss?
Yeah.
Didn't he come from the future?
Abe came from the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, Abe came from the future for sure.
So I'm wondering how he's affected.
See, that's why it bugs the crap out of me, a lot of these things. And again, that's what time travel movies are supposed to do, really. They bug the crap out of you when stuff doesn't really add up. And they don't add up because it's such a hard, like, when it comes to time travel movies, it's really hard to keep a lot of these timelines straight. Because if you go by the logic of, and again, every time, what's beautiful about time travel movies, everyone has their own logic of what time travel means and what affects it. I really do believe that it's definitely an alternate future that older Joe comes from, and that certain things go in that. But that's why the Legend of the Rainmaker, like, that's totally a weird thing, because he's technically, as you know. Obviously, if you're here on our commentary, we hope to God you've seen the movie. You haven't, then we're giving you one chance right now to shut it off and flip on the movie, because the Rainmaker is essentially the kid that he ends up killing the mother of, and sort of right now he, as we speak, is making that future, or theoretically making that future. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, well, how did that happen to then get all the stuff that goes, and maybe that's what's beautiful about this film is that we don't really. We don't really need to go into that detail because it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
I mean the message of the film has nothing to do with the mechanics. The mechanics are just they're a means to get the story out.
Yeah,
an interesting way to do it, but Rian Johnson didn't really want to linger on it too much, which I think is kind of cool because. Every film does have its own ways of doing it, and frankly, they're all wrong in their own unique, special ways.
Right, because ultimately time travel, we obviously have not invented time travel, so we have no idea on what that is, if it exists. And then there's the idea of, well, if you change the timeline here, does it skew off into its own ripple? Does it do this? Does it become a fragmented universe kind of theory in that kind of regard? I mean, obviously, we've tackled time travel movies in the past. Obviously, Donnie Darko would be kind of a time travel sort of thing, and it had its own theories of alternate timelines and stuff like that. So, Looper's not really crazy. It's just it's interesting when you start really thinking the mechanics. That's why they skip it right at the get-go, because there's no point in really talking about the mechanic, because it's such a harder core mechanic than it needs to be. Two, I love the fact that it completely, the entire diner is completely emptied by now, and he knows what's happening.
And that was a good payoff with the gun between the legs. But,
but yeah,
it's always cool to when a movie or some kind of a piece of fiction introduces at least a slightly new take on something like this time travel. Like I feel like this is a far more messy depiction of time travel than a lot of films do.
Yeah.
Which kind of reflects on just everyone's theories of being crazy off the wall, how it works. And so I think that's always really cool.
I love this. I love this scene right here coming up. Like, don't they like, he realizes what's happening. I love this right here. I love this moment of clarity. I love that moment of clarity. That, like, wait, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Like, I forgot about that moment of, like, that little minor moment of clarity. Of just like he's like, fuck. And he throws his gun down. And he looks at him like, what the? I love that little moment of clarity. It's such a funny moment. And again, it becomes this sort of thing. I wish that they would start that. I mean, because there's so many cool things that are happening in this film.
Yeah. What do you think of Joe's prosthetics? His face prosthetics.
At first they didn't bug me. Now that I look at them again, they bug me.
Really?
Like, at first, I didn't think about it. Like, I was like, they're whatever. They a lot of people said, like, oh, they look terrible. They look horrible. They're like, yeah, they're what they are. I never thought about them. But now that I see it again, it's like, wow, that looks horrible.
I always just kind of looked at it as this is not Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing this dude with prosthetics. It's this dude who looks weird. Oh. And he looks a little weird, but I just say, like, some dudes just look a little weird.
That's fair.
And that's okay.
Like I said, I didn't think about it until I see it again. I didn't think about it the first time I saw it. I'm only seeing it now that I'm able to study the film and look at those sort of things. It's not terrible, but is it the best thing I've seen? No. I love how she does the whole motion of a cigarette.
It's an interesting tidbit because apparently that's a thing that helps people who are trying to quit smoke.
Is to do the motion?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
And go through that. That's what I heard at least, and so that's
what I hear from them smokers.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's kind of an interesting little character building.
Like I said, I love the things that come up in this portion of the film, because nobody at this point, once it's revealed that this kid's the Rainmaker, you're like, fuck, he had to kill a little kid, and things like that, and what the fuck you doing in my lawn? Get off my land. Get out of my cornfields. I don't even...
Man, she's got a real vagrant problem over here.
Hey, look, you live in this future where money is an issue.
This is a grisly depiction of the future.
It is. I mean,
vagrants everywhere.
Hey, look, vagrants are a big problem in the future, and it's only going to get worse. Also, maybe that's what my future self will tell me, how to solve the vagrant problem.
Maybe.
And then completely screw up the timeline, knowing he's going to screw up the timeline. Because we all know that if your future self tells you something,
man, if there are that many vagrants out in the countryside, how many vagrants do you think there are downtown?
Oh, we saw some. We saw a little kid that he almost ran over. He was definitely a vagrant. I love it. He's getting withdrawals, get the DTs.
That's a practical effect.
Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
See, I would love to see a movie that does those effects that should be practical. That was a digital effect. That was a digital effect. I'd love to see the complete opposite of this movie.
the Hitchcock zoom. They're just digital.
I would love to see the inverse of that movie.
Just this shot right here. That was digital.
Yeah,
green screened it all in.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we'll do Sin City. We'll make that joke when we watch Sin City. That was digital. That was all digital. Nothing exists. That's set totally digital. That kind of stuff.
Next episode of Scam School. That was digital. That was all digital. Spinning the coin, digital.
Digital. Well, there wasn't there that. I love. Oh God, this is. He puts the. Don't they? Doesn't he have to? I forgot if he get. I love that he has to give up his gun. He's so sad.
His character is kind of sad.
Well, I mean, it is. I love this moment here. It's you're not gonna go back.
He's got a good beard going on.
Yeah, I mean he's had the years in the future to grow it and then come back in time.
That's a future beard.
Exactly.
Wow.
That is a future beard. Everything's a future beard or a past beard.
That's what his past self asked. He was like, Abe, what are beards gonna be like in the future? And he's like, you're looking at it. And then he disappears.
I love it. He's in the barn now. I'm about to kill the barn. I love the idea behind this.
Damn vagrants.
There's so many vagrants here. Oh, man. So let's say this happened to you. let's say Joseph Gordon-Levitt or his character came to your farm. Instead of doing the whole, saying a man's trying to kill me kind of thing, actually tells you, oh, speaking of which, here's where a vagrant's about to come.
Vagrants, man.
Is it a vagrant, though, or is it a...
Yeah, it's a mute vagrant, I believe.
Is it a mutant vagrant?
Not mutant.
Mutant. What if he had shot him? What if I've just seen that sign that was like, boom, the moment to blow him away?
Would have been a bummer.
Now, isn't this where he said, like, wasn't that guy sent out to find him or something like that? For some reason, I feel that was like a decoy, that guy with the sign, but I can't remember if that's the case.
No, I think that was just a dude.
That guy was to do his sign.
Yeah.
You fucking junkie. Yeah.
I really like how dark a lot of these images are, like just physically, literally dark. A lot of people tend to like overlight things, I think.
Well, this is like it's a very weird. I mean, again, this is such a
like leading up to this. Some of those shots were like mostly just black, which I can always appreciate. Like. And all of the stuff in Joe's apartment is like super dark, which are like.
I've always, because again, the tendency is to make things like very, very bright lit. I always liked this set, to be honest, because again, in a world where you've seen some more future stuff, this is definitely a lot of kind of past stuff, and I love that we start learning about the telekinetic stuff and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, this world kind of introduced the idea of TKs, but they don't really. I think that's one thing I wish they went into more depth on. But that's because I always liked that concept of the future of like telekinetic abilities and things like that.
Sure.
But here's kind of what I like, where we start getting the idea of the memory being really screwy. Because as Bruce Willis starts his character, because it's in the future of Joe, starts getting confused about stuff, and has to like concentrate on the older memory to not lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what his future ends up holding, and I like how he has, he has a picture again. Is the idea that's the that he has to think about all that stuff, that he has to like concentrate on this, and, like, which I don't understand how that become like how that helps him. I mean, I guess that sort of becomes the memory.
Well, I mean, it's like any memory, it deteriorates over time, and then use some things to
remember it.
To not just help you remember, but to help you like reconstruct the memory.
Yeah.
So he's reconstructing more and more as time goes on.
Yeah. I didn't even notice that shot did that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even notice the passage of time that way.
Yeah, it's a cool shot.
Oh man, I'm thinking about right now the alternate future that the guy. Toss it.
What alternate future?
The kid. Like I'm thinking of the moment. Like only because I've seen the movie, I'm thinking the moment of where there's a shot of like he's realizing the future the kid's gonna have, and he's this like angry kid, like, and then becomes angry, the Rainmaker, which is so freaking cool. I mean, when that might be my favorite digital effect in the entire movie. You're gonna tell me that was practical, aren't you?
Which
the
effect?
Rainmaker effect? The juicer, if you will.
Bits and pieces of it were practical, but of course, like all of the stuff.
Well,
yeah.
when we get to get there,
There's a lot
we'll
of digital in that as well. But yeah, that effect is so like it's jaw dropping.
Yeah, that's why I'm like I know we're kind of jumping around the film in our commentary, but it's just because like I am now waiting for that effect because I know it's coming. And there's again certain things I like because right now we're kind of in the story building and the kind of things like that where he's like has to say this thing of like someone's coming to do some stuff and it's okay. Yeah, there's a question to ask. All right, let's say this happens to you, like, but actually as opposed to Joseph Gordon-Levitt who doesn't talk about it. What if somebody told you everything? Like let's say this guy comes into your house, right? Not to your apartment, and says, "Hey,
hey, what are you doing in my house?"
I love this. I love this right there. He gets shot. I love that he's like, son of a bitch. Rock salt.
All right, so there's this strange man in my house.
So a strange man comes to your house and says, hey, man, my future self is going to try to kill you. It turns out that the creation of Scam School episode 365 brings upon the end of the world somehow because because Brian essentially gets to the point where he's run out of magic, run out of tricks, run out of every bit of social engineering at the bar on the street, and basically sacrifices a goat to bring forth Satan at a bar.
All right, man. Get out of my house.
That's going to be... We did that 2 weeks ago already.
Yeah, 365, that's 20 weeks from now, so half a year, more or less.
Half a year.
All right, man.
The younger version comes there. He says, "But don't worry." Like he goes, "Look, your older version is going to come to kill you. You know, come to." I don't even know if this makes any sense. Like, why he could come to kill you? Because this is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. This is breaking down. All right, let's reset. Let's restart and this. I love this. Is so freaky. This is so creepy, by the way. That he goes and like
goes into full predator mode.
Well, because he kills every bit of. This is the creepiest part about this, and I think that this is like where you realize how potentially evil you could become if you knew the future.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man! And he realizes what he's going to do, and it's such a creep. Like, could you do this?
No.
Like, let's say for example, you knew this kid was going to grow up to be like the next Hitler. Could you do it?
I don't think so.
I don't think it could either. And I think it's the idea of me knowing that, you know, and even for Bruce Willis, he should know this by now, as his memories get cloudier and things like that, that nothing is set in stone. No future is determined. And sort of what the events that happen in our lives are what shape it. I could never do that. I could never even, you know, remotely knowing that stuff and things like that. I could never, ever kill a kid in cold blood like that. Even knowing that he was going to become what he's become, because I don't even know if that's even worth worth the stuff. And I love that he has to, you know, he has to think about his memories and figure out, did I get pulled again? Did I fix this? Did I not get fix this? You know?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's pretty messed up because he's not killing these kids necessarily because the Rainmaker isn't that bad of a person. He's more or less doing it for super selfish reasons because he wants to create a future where he stays with his wife. Right.
And I don't think he realizes that ain't gonna happen, baby. You know, you coming back in time, you screwing up the timeline. that's already happened. You know, there's no way that this is gonna change it. You know, there's no way of altering the future, of altering things. Like you coming back has already altered it.
Yeah,
and
it's an exercise in futility.
Yeah,
if you will.
And that's sort of what I think. What I don't think Bruce's character quite understands in terms of such. All right, let's reset the scenario again. Let's say Joseph Gordon-Levitt's younger self comes in, right? He says that...
Hey, man, big fan.
Yeah, but not Joseph Gordon-Levitt. In fact, yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt comes back.
Okay.
It turns out future JGL has come to kill younger JGL. Turns out in the future...
Man, I will do whatever it takes, man. You found the right dude. All right. What do I gotta do?
All right. Well, what you have to do to defeat older JGL is not only kind of keep younger JGL kind of chilling in your place, hanging around, things like that.
Right. Pizza party.
But you have to give up your most prized possession to save younger JGL.
Man, I don't even know what that is.
But knowing the fact that you're going to kill older JGL in the process. So ultimately,
that's his kryptonite. His kryptonite is my my one most valuable
so the
possession.
question is, you'll have older JGL, like older JGL come, you'll see him as his 50s or 60s or whatever, however much time is left. It could be by a 5-year older JGL for all you know, because you're not really certain. You know, younger JGL wasn't too explicit of how older his older self is. Sure. Yeah. It could be just like this is my older self from 1 year in the future, and he's come to destroy you, Brandt, because you bring upon the apocalypse or something like that.
Right.
And I've come to defend you. Because
good choice, JGL.
Because
it
turns out that episode 365 of
is the best episode of Scam School.
But you bring forth Satan, and right. Satan inhabits Brian, and then Brian starts ripping off the heads of like other actors, and older JGL kind of comes down the pipeline because it turns out in a year. JGL does like does a movie that Brian quite didn't that everyone else loved, but Brian just didn't really like because it really rubbed him the wrong way. And now that he has Satan powers, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Yeah, because that sounds like something Brian would do if he had Satan powers.
Yeah.
But the question is, would you knowingly kill the older JGL, knowing that they'll never be in a year or 2 or 3 or 50 or whatever, no more?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, I mean, what's the alternative? I say no thanks, and then I die?
Well, you'd be saving JGL's life. You'd be making sure that there'd be more Joseph Gordon-Levitt films.
Yeah, but, I mean, a JGL pre-killing myself and a JGL post-killing myself, those are two very different JGLs.
That's fair.
So I think he's going to be informed in far different ways. But think about this. Let's say old JGL is like 10 years down the road or something.
Yeah.
For the next 10 years, I'm present day JGL's like best friend. Like, that's awesome.
But what if it's for like the next 5 months?
That's still 5 months of being JGL's best friend.
What if the older JGL is but a day is but like 5 hours in the future?
Well,
I love the idea.
Then we would have to talk, maybe.
I love the idea of like this the window getting shorter and shorter. It's like, this is my future self in like 30 minutes. like all he did was come back in time 30 minutes. Like I love the idea of that being the future of like this. Two, I love the idea of this kid like like being enamored with him and like saying like here.
Also, that's such a cool moment. Like, who hasn't experienced like trying to be all quiet and sneaky,
God, yeah,
and then
course.
just beep, 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 and you're like, no.
Yeah. But I love this moment here. I love that we have a moment with this. What I like about this point is that what older JGL had the time to kind of meet the girl and sort of that's what his redeeming moment. What I love is that younger JGL, Joe, if you will, his character, gets the moment to see this and sort of become oh man. I love that he gets a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Well, I mean,
not-
it's super important for him to come to the conclusion that this kid isn't destined to be the
Yeah.
worst person alive.
Well, because I don't think anybody, and I mean, obviously there's so many forms of thinking about what shapes you as a person, things like that. I mean, there's the theory of that. I'm always a fan of the tabula rasa, that everyone comes in as a blank slate, and that was what are your experiences that shape you as to who you are or who you're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely is really cool that they kind of tackle those sort of things.
Yeah.
That's how much time we had left. And I love that. We're getting absorbed in the movie again.
It's fun. It's okay to take a moment to appreciate.
I guess that's true. Well, because we're right now in the lull moment. I think that's what I do enjoy about this moment, about this film in particular, and maybe this is a Rian Johnson kind of thing, is that oh, here it is, the multiplication tables. Were you doing multiplication tables at this age?
Never anything like this. Not like a board and everything? That's crazy.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if this is the scene where you see it, or if maybe we've already passed it. But I think Rian Johnson made like a really determined effort to only show hats when the villains in the future wear them, except for in his room. There are little figurines with the wide-brimmed hats that the guys in the future wear.
Oh, interesting.
It's a really cool little Easter egg.
I did not. When we get there, we'll see it. Point it out to me because I've not seen it.
Yeah.
I love this kid gets angry.
Yeah, and speaking to what you're saying earlier about like not developing the telekinetic idea super in depth, like I think that's so that makes such a good payoff for what Sid does.
Yeah.
Because going up to this point, like you don't really. I mean, when I first saw it, there was no way I could tell that he had those kind of powers.
Yeah.
Even when it came to this point. And, like, he starts hinting at it, and he gets really angry, and she's really freaking out. And, you see stuff moving in the background, but I didn't fully piece it together. Like, I just kind of chalked it up to just cinematic techniques.
See,
and stuff.
I thought that there was something wrong with this and such, and I love that is how frightening it is that she goes into the safe as the panic room.
Yeah. Like you could definitely tell something is off, but there's no way to tell to what extent.
I kind of wish
he has.
Yeah, because again, when that moment comes, like
it's so just.
What's great about that moment is that even younger JGL, who had never thought about doing that, is like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I think we need to kill this kid. This is Damon, bitch. We have to destroy him. But I mean, he's a Like the thing is that he's not a bad kid,
Right.
and you see them in these moments of just like he is not bad. He has regret, and he has remorse.
He's just like any kid at that age. Like he doesn't have full control.
Yeah, that's
know?
what it is. He just doesn't quite understand what's going on, and you know, and it's heartbreaking because you know right then and there you see, you know, you just hear you know, if you had just seen the moments of anger, which what would have happened or what can happen if sort of we let Bruce go on his own, and such. Because, like I said, seeing Bruce in this moment of like he's able to just off a kid, which again, that's the hooker, right?
I feel like I heard some people say that it was.
Yeah,
But-
that's why he says "holy shit" because it's the hooker that
Yeah.
he sees, and he remembers it. And again, he thinks, "Oh man, that's the Rainmaker," because it makes only sense because she knew him, and like just the idea of like again the idea that this character will do this, and will even has already done it once and considered it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I can never get behind him. I can't get behind him as a character because it's just so like. It's so against our younger version of it, and you know it's weird on how corrupted our main character gets. You know,
Yeah.
over time.
I mean, old Joe and young Joe, like they both have like serious character flaws. Like
yeah,
they are messed up people up until the very last moments of the film.
yeah. But yeah, because if you just see the kid, the fact that's about to happen right now, if you just as a character saw that, you would want to not want to get rid of this kid. But you're like, this kid's gonna grow up to be horrible. This is gonna be evil. This is an evil kid, which he's not evil, and that's what I love about that little moment of regret, or he cares. He doesn't quite know what to do because this is a new thing for him, and he's kind of coming into his own for whatever power it is, and it's definitely having, you know, in terms of telekinetics in this world, definitely that is a higher end, you know, that is like all it's been like, we move like freaking lighters and shit like that. But this is an entirely different level of telekinesis that comes in. Vagrants. You're right. This does have maybe the future does have a lot of vagrant problems.
I'm telling you, man. Vagrants. It's a real thing.
It's the future, and they still only have black and white photos.
It all cycles back around, man.
That's very true. It's very true.
They all got dot matrix printers.
Babe.
Because that's what's in.
That's it's always in, dude.
Yeah.
Dot matrix. Now, what is the oldest piece of technology you remember?
Just physically being in presence of.
Or what is the oldest piece of tech? Here's the question: what is the old? And again, this is now we're gonna get into Robert being the old man and you
Right.
being the young upstart. What is the? Because I say remember in terms of like fondly, like the oldest piece of technology that I remember fondly would be I guess Apple IIs technically. But I never was around when Apple II. I mean, Apple II had existed, I think, a year or so before I became conscious of what the world was like.
Yeah.
But obviously, Apple II had a lot of influence computer-wise and stuff like that in my youth.
Sure. I mean, I remember a lot of CRTs.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say that I remember them fondly. I would probably my answer would have to be we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, you and I, that handheld that handheld Sega thing. Right?
Oh, the Nomad
Yeah.
or the Game Gear.
I don't.
The Game Gear. That's what it was.
Yeah.
We talked about it at Classic Games Fest.
Yes. Probably that. I have really fond memories of that. Also, like my PS1
For me,
was pretty dope.
all right. Here's the question now. As we're talking about the past in this, because we're about to come to the effect, and the effect is like it's something for your ass.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting for that effect to happen because it is like fucking hardcore.
Something else, man.
And I love this. I love that there's a secret hidden exit out of here,
Mm-hmm.
and that he knows about it.
Vagrant raids.
Damn, there is some fucking vagrant shit. Nana said he was nuts.
I love the idea of there being like a comprehensive backstory of
what?
Vagrant Wars and
The Vagrant Wars of 1952. No, of 2020. That's when the Vagrant Wars happened, of course.
yeah, sure.
I think I'd be the granddad in this picture. All right, but here's the question then: what is the piece of technology that you grew up that you've lusted after, that you like desperately wanted? And I say technology, it could have been even like an older camera or something like that. Like for me, and I always bring this up because I had somebody had mentioned like zip discs back in the day, and I remembered as a kid I wanted these things. This tape or disc format called the Jazz Drive from iOmega, and I think it held like a gig of memory, and I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. So what's the piece of technology growing up that you would kind of, even if it's something like, like a camera that you saw that you're like, obviously we've gone well beyond and you've had, revisions have happened, but that piece of technology or that piece of equipment that you're like, man, if I could just have had that now, I could do these amazing things with.
Yeah, there's not really much in the way of that. I've always been really good at just like, even if I see something cool that I would like to have,
right,
I've always been really good at tempering expectations and saying like, well, I guess that's a thing that exists. Maybe one day I'll have something kind of like that.
See, for me, and I was good too, but since I was such a computer nerd that I got so into that stuff that, I would always look at these really not expensive stuff, but these sort of like scenes. Oh man, it's just so adorable. It's so adorable, and it's like, I wish. Like I love that this becomes a thing that this is like where younger JGL really considers like, am I even doing, he's doing the thing he needs to do to defend, but I love that this is like that he becomes this like character, and starts thinking of things.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, here is this where. I can't remember. Oh, he does. Does he? I can't remember if he does actually.
He goes in, and that's when
right.
they trap him. I think he was just scoping it out that time.
Yeah. But what I love is that at this moment, this is kind of where, because like younger Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is now getting all the things he would have gotten as older, and I like that idea. I like the idea that that's happening.
Like these redemptive qualities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I like that he gets him. That he's getting him now in this sort of different experience.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of parallels. Like she ends up being a very comparable figure in young Joe's life, as to old Joe's wife was for him, and
right.
You see that when all of old Joe's memories start mixing and matching, because these are very similar experiences, and she kind of overrides his future wife's place, his role in his life. And
I dig that. I dig that a lot. And it's kind of tragic the way it ends, or the way it's gonna, that it has to kind of get resolved.
Sure.
Because of things that are well beyond either their control at this point in time in the framework of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a lot of the things that younger JGL does that kind of older Joe has forgotten about as life has gone on. Because he perverses a lot of stuff, and it becomes very apparent.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to tell me that's a digital effect, aren't you?
I'm
Pretty
sure
sure that's practical.
Pretty sure that's practical. The smoke, though, that was practical.
Yeah. No, see, that would be amazing. The smoke was that.
We spent $5 million on the smoke in this shot.
Oh my god! So I love that she's. I love that she's telekinetic, and I love that she has again this sort of thing. I love the idea that in the future we get telekinesis, and it's not really explained why. But that's the one thing I wish would have gone in more detail. But again, in a different movie, it would have been the case.
Sure,
this is not the movie for that thing. It's just,
yeah.
I guess that's why they, I guess it's the only reason why they have telekinesis in this world really is to introduce the concept of the Rainmaker.
Yeah,
that's the only reason.
And also, I think it's a totally reasonable depiction of what would happen if telekinesis was introduced.
Oh yeah, of course. You'd totally be hitting on chicks with bars. Like look what I can
tons
do.
of people have it now, but it's all super limited in scope.
Yeah.
Until you have Sid, who really unlocks the potentials.
Oh, for sure. In a scary kind of way.
It's basically Avatar rules, right? Like you have people who are waterbenders,
and of course you mean Avatar: The Last Airbender.
That's cool.
As opposed to Avatar,
we don't talk about that film.
The one with the unobtainium.
Jesus.
It's a beautiful movie. You can't deny that Avatar.
I really don't like that movie very much.
Because okay, which Avatar don't you like, or both of them? Because there are two. Okay, there are three.
Jesus. I honestly forgot that
Avatar was a movie.
That Avatar: The Last Airbender had a movie until now.
So did Hollywood, sadly.
No, not sadly. Thankfully, everyone has hopefully forgotten about that.
I hope that. I hope no one. I hope somebody. I hope people as time goes on forget about it, and
maybe we shouldn't forget about it. We all should remember this horrible tragedy.
Well, I agree we should remember the horrible tragedy, but I'm saying maybe it'll come to the. See, my fear
Never
is
forget.
My fear is that the people that will forget about it will say, "Let's make an Avatar movie again," and we'll do exactly the same bullshit.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's Avatar: Last Airbender, the cartoon series. There's Avatar, the James Cameron film. And then there's Avatar: The Last Airbender, the film adaptation of the cartoon series by M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah. Most would argue that's not the case. I love how we're talking about entirely three separate films in the moment of this. Because we're just waiting. We're just right now waiting for that fucking scene to kick off.
But so you have let's say your waterbenders.
Right.
And they bend water and stuff, and that's cool, and everyone's like, that's awesome, dude. But then you have your bloodbenders, who are advanced technical water bending.
And you're saying that's what Sid is.
So that's sort of what Sid is. Like, you have all these chumps who are like, oh, I'm so cool, check out this coin.
Yeah.
And then you have your bloodbender come along, and it's like, come on, bro.
Here it is. Oh, God, this is
intense.
so, yeah. What I love is that he
Also, if you listen to Rian Johnson's in-theater commentary, which I listened to during my second theatrical viewing, he mentions a moment coming up when Sid starts walking down the stairs, and he gives this amazing face. Just you'll probably see it when it happens. But yeah, I definitely almost started laughing out loud in the middle of the theater when I was listening to that.
I'll wait till you point out, because like this is like when I first saw this effect, when I first saw what we're about to see. Is that the face?
No, it must have been earlier.
When I first saw this effect, Oh man, this is so frightening. This is so freaking frightening right here.
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps.
Oh man. This is such a... I love that he goes in. I think the kid's been moved, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was. This is so...
It's so cool.
It is so cool. I love what he said. He pushes him out. This right here is such... Like, when I saw this the first time, I was like...
I keep getting series of goosebumps.
I was like, oh, shit. And it was seeing that moment right here. I love this. I love that because he sees it now as younger Sid, that older Sid knows exactly which one it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing it, I was like, oh, fuck. And he knows exactly where he's supposed to be next. And I love that he still does something, that he still gets the younger kid. That I love everything behind it. And I love that he goes in there now, and it's just like, it's just blood.
Yeah.
And
this is a really neat shot.
Yeah. And I love that he thinks that he does. And again, this is where younger, like, that's what I like about this, is that he has those moments and shit like that. Like, you know. And again, it's hard to, I mean, look at,
it's a pretty striking image.
it's a fuck all image. Just blood, you know, raining from the sky, and like he is covered in it, and it's so like frightening, and I love that he ends up, I forget what he does, I forget how he does it, but I know he obviously doesn't kill the kid.
Spoiler alert, Roberto.
But I love that he does this. I love that he kind of shows some kindness, and it's hard. And that's what I love about younger Joseph Gordon-Levitt, that sort of older Joe has kind of forgotten how he is as a person, and sort of what he is, and that he can't do that. He can't kill him, because he knows he's just a kid, and he knows that you know, that's not him. And that's what I love about him as a character. You know, I love that he has this moment of like, I've got to defend this little kid, and I like that becomes him, that he gets that little bit of redeeming quality at this age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could tell for a moment before that, he had this impression of, oh, he's gonna find Sid, and Sid's gonna be cackling maniacally.
Yeah,
like, I killed him,
and he's not, because he doesn't. He's not at an age where he can understand all this stuff. He doesn't know, and stuff. You know, it's not the kind of thing that is easy to quite understand. I love that too. I love I got him. Well, shit.
I want to say that's Rian Johnson's dad.
Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Of course he's a fuck up. Damn. Talk about the Rainmaker. Gotta take care of business.
Business.
Gotta clean house. That's what I would do. See, this is what I would have hoped Bruce Willis' character would have done.
What?
Just basically took care of all the gangsters and kind of prevented this, as opposed to having to do the Rainmaker kind of bullshit. But I guess, the Rainmaker is who caused him this pain, but it's, again, so bizarre that he is, whether he knows it or not, just sealing his own fate.
Yeah.
And again, it's weird to think in terms like that. All right, Brandt. You now have the ability of telekinetic powers.
All right.
But it's very limited telekinetic powers. This is the introduction of telekinetic powers.
Am I the first?
You are part of the first.
Okay.
But as being part of the first people that have telekinetic powers, you are only limited to control one type of matter. I mean, like you can only control gold. Like you control metals or carbon-based stuff.
Earth, air.
Yeah. How about
water,
that? How about the basic
fire.
elements? Yeah, the basic elements: the earth, air, fire, that kind of stuff. And you're only able to move them and swirl them and stuff like that. Do all the cool effects with it. What is the element you choose? Oh, I love this.
I mean,
yeah.
with fire, am I able to generate small amounts of fire?
No.
Okay, so it's just moving stuff.
It's just you're able to manipulate it. If you're like fire, you're like what's his face? The X-Men that's able to manipulate shit. I love.
Okay. This, by the way, this is a really inspired choice to show his perspective after everything's already happened.
Oh yeah. Because you don't have to go. You don't have to do the. What's cool about that shot again? What's great about that? That's also a money-saving thing because you don't have to film this elaborate action sequence or anything like that, and you get across that. Oh shit went down.
Yeah, Rian Johnson is a director who understands the power of the audience's imagination.
Well, because that's like the effect of specifically one of my favorite books that does that is The Great Gatsby, where. I could spoil like a way older, like a couple decade old book, right? And not be pissing off a whole bunch of people.
Sure,
in The Great
whatever.
Gatsby, when Gatsby gets shot, they don't show him getting shot. They don't show any of that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
I love this. Take this truck, take gold, and go live your life.
But yeah, for me, it'd be air. It'd be air.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I think it'd be water.
Gotcha.
I love the idea of sort of swirling shit around. I love it. I love that. I love it. I love that he says that's everything, Love that he completely loses it. It just takes advantage of it being dusty.
Blunderbusses, man.
They'll fuck you up. So as we come to the end of this film, and we know we're coming to the end, what's your final thoughts on this movie? Like, if you were to give your final summation on this kind of film, Brandt, And we've talked about a lot of stuff from practical effects to storytelling elements, things like that.
Speaking of practical effects, we're about to hit a big one.
That's very true. We're about to hit a big one. What's your final take on this movie? Like, if you had to sum up everything you love about this film, or hate about this film for that matter, although I don't think we really hate the movie, what would you say?
I'm secretly a closet Looper hater.
Yeah, secretly you
I've been
hate
leading you on this whole commentary long.
But seriously, what would you take about this? Is that practical?
I mean, that shot right there is, I think the actual turning it up, that first initial reaction shot might not have been. Although I know, like, they did flip a truck like that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They just painted out the
ramp.
I think they used one of those things that punches into the ground and
Yeah, that makes sense.
and does that. I think.
But yes,
But yeah, so I mean, it is no secret that I am a Rian Johnson fan. Not even just limited to his films. Like, I follow him on Twitter, and I think he's a super funny, entertaining dude who plays banjo and is awesome. Who also, fun fact, saw one of my short films just outside of high school and commented on it. Did I ever tell you about that?
No, you never told me about this. All right,
funny because I tell everybody about this.
Here we go. Here comes the creation of the mouth thing. I love that he.
This was all practical.
Yeah, of course. they rose a whole slew of stuff, and I love this. I love that he's like he is just pissed, and he's about to kill the older man, and he thinks about.
But yeah, so.
But yes, tell your story real quick.
So he was on the Slash Filmcast,
Right.
which is an amazing podcast,
Of course.
and he's good friends with those guys. I think he did this just after The Brothers Bloom came out, maybe around that time. And during one of their discussions, they were talking about the reappropriation of brands and stuff into films, like the Transformer stuff, and all of those films. And he made a joke about there being an Uno film where a bunch of people play Uno, and it was going to be called One. And I was like, that's a funny idea. I can make that video.
As they made that video.
So I got a bunch of my friends right after we graduated from high school, and we got together and shot this video One. It's like 10 minutes, and it should be like 3 minutes. It's super long, and it's kind of dumb, but I was like, I can make it. So I made it, and I sent it to him, and he said that it was really cool, and I was like, oh my God, Rian Johnson said I was cool. And then he went on to do amazing stuff.
I wish I had the clout to talk to Rian Johnson. I really wish I had the clout to interview him.
He's a really approachable dude.
I bet you he is, but at the same time,
he's really busy right now. But
yeah, at the same time, like the problem with me is I bet you he's approachable if I ever met him in real life and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like there are certain people after a certain point that when you want to get them on a show or something like that, you have to deal with them as an agent.
Yeah.
I love this. I love that. This is probably the coolest moment in the movie.
Yeah,
Because this is where Joe as a character comes full circle and realizes everything that's about to happen.
yeah.
And it's so cool that he can see what's going to happen and kind of why the movie's called Looper in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of what goes down, and he sees everything that he could become, and everything that again, all that stuff, everything that's going to happen in this history timeline.
It's such a densely powerful moment.
Yeah, and he realizes what he has to do to stop it from happening.
Yeah, like he's rendered powerless all except for this one trump card.
Yeah. And I love it I love that, and this effect right here, so great. As it ripples through time, he doesn't exist. Yeah. He died. And I love that moment. I love that the moment that Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Joe's character, basically realizes that, what's cool about that moment is that his character got all the things that the older Joe got in a brief moment of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love and more. And I love that about the character. And I wish things hadn't ended as tragically as they did.
Sure.
I mean, they had to, and he knew it. And I love that's what happened.
And honestly, had he not been faced with such a difficult choice, he probably wouldn't have grown as far as he went.
Yeah, and I love that becomes the case, and I love that he chose that as sort of a thing, and the idea of what happened to Joe, he had to go away, and I love that's sort of what happens, and that this is the sort of the world this kid becomes, and sort of what happens, and that by having sort of love in his life and his mother and things like that, that he doesn't grow up to be evil, because no one, there's always the idea of that you grow up to be evil, you're fated to be this, you're fated to be that. And what I love is that what this movie kind of perpetuates, the idea that if you have kind of this really good, not just caring atmosphere, sort of somebody that's sort of guiding you as a young person to kind of become the person you're going to be. Because ultimately, if I think of my life, I'm thankful my parents kind of guided me the way they did and kind of encouraged me the way they have. And I'd imagine the same is for you, your life and things like that. I love that's what that movie does. And I love also the fact that Joe, realizes what he has to do in that very moment of time and knows that that's what needs to be done, that he can't exist to help this kid. And I love that he makes that sacrifice. And it's something that's very important as a character that he does it. And it's something that I don't think he could not have, like the Joe at the beginning of this film would not have done this.
Right.
And I like that about that character. I wish it could have been different, because I would love to have seen Joe and the kid and things like that happen, but I know that it couldn't happen. Mm-hmm. But I love that Joe knows that he had to sacrifice himself to get to that point.
And also, I'll say, having a completely silent credits right here was so cool in theaters. Both times, because nobody really knows what to think after that. When you're first exposed to, oh my god, that's insane.
It's fucking crazy. I loved it. Brandt, thank you so much for doing this show with me. Tell people where they could find you online, good sir.
Well, thank you very much for doing this show with me, Roberto. People can find me online namely at Twitter. You can find me with the username Gadwag, Gatowag. You can also find me at twitter.com/Gadwag if you're not already tapped into there. So, just look for it. And sometimes I post words, and sometimes I post pictures, sometimes I post videos, kind of a multimedia extravaganza over there. That's about it. I mean, you can find me other places if you just search for my name or Gadwag.
Yeah, whatever. You have a Tumblr somewhere out there with some of your random postings to certain things and funny jazz stuff. Of course, you can find me. I'm at Vincent404 there on the Twitters. If you want to comment on this podcast, kind of give your take on Looper and let us know kind of what you think, head to our website, CosmicRadio.TV/Cinematalkraphy.
That's correct.
There you'll find previous episodes, previous commentary, some of our reaction stuff, and things like that. Of course, you can reach us at our Twitter account at Cinematalkraphy. Hit us up at our email address, cinematography@gmail.com.
Yep.
And, of course, on that site, you can also find other content on this network, such as the video game podcast I do called Jump Point that I do with Mr. Bryce Castillo and such. So that's it for this episode. So tune in next time when we talk about another movie.
You looping, dog?
I'm looping.
You looping.
I'm looping. I'm looping the third.
Hello, everybody. This is Cinematography, and I'm your host, Roberto Villegas.
And I'm Brandt Hughes. Today we're going to talk about, what movie are we talking about, Roberto?
We're talking about this tall Gat Man.
Tall Gat Man. Is that what we're talking about?
Yep, Tall Gat Man.
Tall Gat Man.
The film.
Should be a fun film. I wonder why no one's ever played Looper backwards and seen they figure out something more.
Hello, everybody. This is Cinematography, and I'm your host, Roberto Villegas.
And I'm Brandt Hughes.
And today, we are going to be riffing over the movie
At Cinematography?
Hello, everybody. This is Cinematography. Don't worry, we'll eventually get it. Just start the movie over. Hello, everybody. This is our first episode of Cinematography. I'm your host, Roberto V. Villegas.
And I'm Brandt Hughes. Roberto, what exactly?
Please, Brandt, I'm the host.
Oh.
Today, we're going to be watching a film. What film are we watching?
Our first film.
Hello, everybody.
What is our fucking first film?
Oh, our actual first film?
Yes.
Donnie Darko.
Okay, thank you. I fucking forgot.
Amateur.